Good morning, good evening, and welcome to the first webinar in our Be Your Brand series, Northside Hospital's Talent Revival, an inside look into their complete brand overhaul. I'm Sheridan Ganger, Director of Marketing here at Symphony Talent. I'm so thrilled to introduce today's presenters, Bill Boorman, founder of True Conferences and employer branding expert, Kelly Piccininni, Talent Acquisition Manager at Northside Hospital, and Marlon Candelero, our Senior Director of Strategy and Client Services at Symphony Talent. We have a very exciting presentation underway, but I just wanted to cover a couple of logistics before we get going. Questions are absolutely encouraged, so I ask you that you submit your questions via the Zoom question box, and our goal is to answer the questions as they come in. We'll of course get to some of the Q&A post, after we cover some of these slides, but we want to make sure that we're interacting with you, our participants. So please feel free to send the questions in as you think of them. We'll also be live tweeting during today's session, so please use the hashtag #BeYourBrand to join in the discussion. But before I turn it over to Bill, I wanted to provide you some quick insights around what our Be Your Brand campaign is all about. Bill, could you move it to the next slide, please? Thank you. So this new campaign brings to life the challenges and successes that companies today are facing as they build their brand and engage with candidates in our modern talent acquisition landscape. The Be Your Brand campaign will include blog posts, a series of webinars demonstrating how companies such as Northside Hospital have created a unique employer brand, and we're going to get them live to share their brand story. So a little bit about this series, definitely check out the Symphony Talent blog to learn more. Bill, it's all you.
Okay, so thanks for the introduction, Sheridan. I'm excited about today's webinar primarily because we're going to be digging into some numbers and some metrics and looking at what's really working rather than talk about theory, which is the whole point and what I'm most excited about the Be Your Brand campaign, in that we want to explore with people who are actually doing some real quality work, what's working, what isn't working, and what lessons can you share. So thanks everybody for tuning in and for being here. I want to start off first of all with a question for Kelly.
Good morning.
Morning, Kelly. Which really is the starting point. Kelly, before we kick off, I think just to tell anyone listening in what your role is within the hospital.
I manage a talent acquisition team for all of the clinical side of our healthcare, which is obviously very top of everyone's mind here, nurses and all of our advanced practitioners.
Okay, so I think the other thing when I was looking at your background, you're a recruiter and an active recruiter rather than a marketeer.
Correct.
Yeah, so which I think is important for people listening in. You really learning these principles and getting things right. So, from your opinion, when you're attracting candidates, some candidates are being attracted by brand, so they're coming into your career site, they're finding you on Google and looking that way, and others are going directly to jobs, or they may be coming in from social media and looking at brand. What do you see as the main differences with candidates attracted by brand compared with those who are attracted to a job?
I think that the candidates that are attracted to us from our brand are the ones that will stick around with Northside. They're the ones that will retire here versus the employee that comes to us via just job or job posting. I think they're more short-term and more quick hit. The brand, we're really trying to attract for a cultural fit, and that to me is more sustainable than when you just come for a job.
So what do you see that meaning in kind of real terms, recruiter terms, someone attracted to the brand or for the culture fit? What does that actually look like?
There are a lot of nurses or advanced practitioners that have the technical skill set, but they come to our hospital and either it's the culture isn't right for them. We are definitely patient-centered and quality focused. we deliver more babies than any hospital in the United States. It's busy. There's a lot happening. There are not a ton of levels in this organization. Our titles are, we have very few vice presidents. I report to a director. If you're coming from a culture that has lots of layers, or that's not going to be what you find at Northside. Those folks have technical skill. Our retention wasn't good. And so looking at our hires and why we're retaining some, not others, it typically comes down to the culture, the personality fit. And I believe, when looking at recruiting these candidates, I can sell a job, but the whole deal, it doesn't work.
Okay, so do you feel the candidates who are coming to you to the brand as opposed to a job link have been following you for longer periods of time and have a better insight?
Correct, I do. Yes, I think it's an average of 8 visits for 7. They're interacting with us 7 times or more prior to making a commitment. And
I think that's the super interesting point. I know when I did some tracking for some customers, and a few people raised questions on it, I found there was anything up to about 7 months before people were hitting apply, but they were looking multiple times at specific content. When you're a recruiter, so when you interview someone following a brand in short terms, as opposed to someone clicking on a link, say from a job board and coming direct to a job and applying, what are you seeing as the real differences in those types of candidates?
I think they understand. They've done the research on Northside. They understand the culture. Oftentimes they'll make comments about some of our reviews on Glassdoor, or folks, they'll reference back to things they saw on social media. They are definitely more knowledgeable about our culture and our healthcare system than the ones that just apply for a position.
Absolutely right. And in terms of conversions, without looking at exact numbers, what do you think is the difference between those who convert on the conversion ratios between, say, brand and between brand and job?
I don't know the actual data on that, and I'm sure we could dig into that at some point. But my gut tells me it's very, very high.
It's very high. Excellent. So if anyone has any questions on that, feel free to put it in. If not, we'll move on to the next slide. Sheridan, do we have any questions come in yet?
I don't see anything coming in just yet.
Excellent. So if anyone has any questions, feel free to put that in. But one of the things that I was really impressed with when we were looking at your campaign and the work you were doing, some of the stories we were sharing yesterday prior to the webinar, is what we call truth in branding. So giving people a real picture. Kelly, do you want to tell us a little bit about what you actually did to achieve kind of truth in your branding, as opposed to promoting a mythical nirvana?
I think these days people are really, they're pretty darn savvy with seeing what's genuine and what's not. And I noticed myself right away after coming to Northside, when I looked at the photographs that we were using our recruitment marketing, I just laughed at some of them. That you could tell they were models. It's stock photography, and we weren't telling the real story. Northside historically has been very, very conservative, and they when I first went to my leader and said I'd like to photograph our staff in our cath lab, she was like, "Oh, no way! We can't use our own employees." I'm like, "Why?" And so eventually we got there, and they started to see the need for really showcasing our own employees, our own equipment, our own facilities, just really showing the true picture of Northside. So we started with that, just the simple photographs and video that's true and real to Northside, and then using the language. We did some surveys and understanding, when I kind of looked at Northside and what differentiates us from our competitors. I mean, healthcare, everybody's trying to do the same thing. We all have fairly similar benefits. One might have a slightly lower premium, one might have a pension, but in reality, I don't think that's what differentiates or what makes a decision for an employee to come on board or not. I think it's the people that they're going to work with day in and day out, especially in healthcare. And so I needed a way to show what our employees were doing, because that to me that's what makes Northside special. And so I had to get that out there.
And the big question I'd have on that, listening to that story, which I'm sure lots of people listening in are similar, some of them in the same position as you going back a few years, in that they want to change to this truth telling, to use their employees in pictures and put out more than not just a stock picture, but also not a stock message. How did you actually manage to get that achieved in your organization and make that change? Because that's a big step for a lot of people to actually be allowed to go out there and tell the true story.
Yeah, it definitely, it's come in phases for sure, but my recruiters are out on the units often. I encourage them to be intermingling and becoming one of, kind of understanding the departments that they recruit for. And in talking to those leaders, it's like, tell me what, why we always ask the three questions, what brought you to Northside, what keeps you at Northside, and what could make you better, what could make it even better for your group. So in that work, I'm trying to find, somebody like them. So what brought them here? What's so fantastic about this unit? What makes this job better than or worse than your last one? And we're trying to fix the cons and accentuate the pros. And so I'm telling those stories. We're taking pictures where I ask them, what are you proud of on these units? What would you like to share with a potential tour? And those are the stories that we're telling in our recruitment marketing. They're very organic. Most of them come from things these units were already doing. And I think our community out there, our target, that it's very authentic.
Yeah, and I think this is much about what people listening in. I can remember speaking with Hodes a long time ago, quite a few years ago, on a different campaign where this was as much about turning people off as it was turning people on, to make sure you got the right people in that funnel rather than lots of people in that funnel. Have you found that to be different as a recruiter since you've changed that messaging? Absolutely.
I mean, I joke all the time. I have a sign on my desk that says, "You don't have to be crazy to work here. We'll teach you." And it's just, I mean, I laugh because you can hide the ugly in the interview process if you would like to, but it doesn't behoove anyone, because they get here and they're going to see the truth. I mean, no facility is perfect. I mean, we definitely, we all have areas of opportunity. We're doing a lot of things right. We're doing a whole lot of things right, but we're not perfect, and I encourage the recruiters and the leaders to be honest in their interviews, as well as in our recruitment marketing. I mean, you have to tell the true story. I mean, our parking's a nightmare, but we're building a parking deck. We're trying to fix it. So I try to highlight, yes, we've got some parking drama. You might drive around for 20 minutes in the morning. It's frustrating, but we're trying very hard to fix that issue. We know it's a problem, we're fixing it. So we try to really be authentic about those type of things. And I think the candidates appreciate it. It's refreshing and it's real. They don't get here and look and say, wait a minute, this isn't what you told me it was.
I mean, I see this all the time. There was a comparison I made recently to a particular company. I was looking at what they were doing and what the truth was inside the organization. We kind of said it was a bit like you've created a very fancy career site. But that's really just like going to a hotel and only decorating the lobby.
Right.
So it looks good, but
you can only hide it.
Yeah. Once you get inside, the most dangerous thing in recruiting, I think, it is when people accidentally get hired, and they're clearly, once they get in, they're like, these are the wrong, this just isn't for me. It doesn't make me a bad nurse. It just means I'm not a good nurse in this place.
Right, and that I mean, that's always difficult for a recruiter because recruiters are salespeople, and for us, it's the closing down that requisition is exciting, and that's what that's your goal. But I try to have these recruiters really feel more connected to their units and understand that you can close down the requisition, but it's going to come right back open if it's not the right fit. So we've got to start this dating from the very beginning with the reality of the situation. I mean, I think you got to be true to who you are, true to what we do every day, and just tell the truth.
And Marlon, I know you've been patiently listening in. When we look at the numbers, and you look at the numbers between the sites, do we see a difference between content that people are looking at, either from the social or the career site, and ultimately applying, and people who are just coming in on jobs?
Absolutely. So with people who are typically coming in just to see the job, it's depending where they're coming from. So you're actually
I'm having difficulty hearing you, Marlon. I don't know whether you want to.
So can you hear me now?
Yeah, I can hear you now.
Okay, great. So there is a difference, a significant difference, depending on the media or source that they're coming from. People who are coming from media or job posting traffic, if you will, are doing just that. They're looking at a job and they're either applying or leaving, whereas people who are coming into social media are interacting with several pages per visit, as well as people who are coming in directly to the site. And again, that ties back to what Kelly was saying earlier, where even if your application conversion rates are similar, the actual quality of the person, depending on how much they've looked into you and what they've researched, and making sure that the message is transparent across the board, like Kelly was just speaking to, that defines the quality of the actual employee in the long run.
And do you think we can, at some point, I know it's not there yet, but do you think that we can reach a point in the same way as people do in sales or e-commerce, where we can predict success according to what content people are viewing and how much time they're spending researching?
Predictability.
Marlon, we're having a hard time hearing you. Some of the folks on the call just sent a chat. Could you speak up just a little bit?
The predictability of it is going to emerge as personalization emerges and really caters to the person who's seeking a specific job, and the messaging that they're encountered with is customized to them. You'll start seeing some shifts there. And you'll also start seeing shifts, again, depending on what they're looking for and, what message is driven to them. And it's really about, am I a fit for this environment? Long run, yes. As we continue to look at it, we can measure the hire across the board, but we can also measure the hire from a quality perspective long term, and really tie that line back to how that person started and what their search was about. And part of it is, data-driven metrics, and part of it is anecdotal-driven metrics from that same employee, like Kelly mentioned earlier. Her sitting down and asking them, what's been your experience here, and why did you stay here, and how did you get there to begin with?
I think that's excellent. Sheridan, do we have any questions coming in on that?
No questions. Just a couple of folks said that the audio, we're having some difficulty with the audio, and we apologize. We'll be sure to post this recording after the webinar to our YouTube channel. But no other questions coming in around that, Bill.
Okay, excellent. So,
Bill, we're following all of this. We're doing surveys, and we're gathering data and really monitoring everyone that's coming into our organization, at least from a nursing standpoint, for the first 3 years, to really kind of understand, where they came, how they came to us, and where we're having retention success. So in a couple of years, it'll be very exciting to look back and see where all this data goes.
Is there any trends you're seeing early on, without kind of looking at numbers or specifics? Is there any trends you're seeing in terms of the retention piece over people who spend more time looking at more content?
I'm not able to draw that conclusion yet, but I mean, our retention is definitely improving.
Yeah, no, that's excellent. So, when you started out, you had an initial plan that said, this is what we're going to do, this is how we're going to change the career site, and this is what's going to happen. Since you've started, what have you changed from your initial plan, and why did you make those changes?
Well, you know, originally when I reached out to the team at now Symphony Talent, it was to work on social, and then we kind of started those conversations, and then I got a directive from my manager to get our career site up and running in 45 days, and we had one, but it was horrendous. So we did that, and I think
Let's look at that for a second. Then, what was horrendous about your old career site? Let's see if anyone.
Oh, it was very stagnant. It was not mobile friendly. Applications took a very long time. We had, you know, at the time, very well thought out plan of all these kind of disqualifying questions, so that, you know, you could really, the system would weed through and find the most qualified applicant, which, you know, these days in this nursing market, we can't have that. But it wasn't mobile friendly. It was just not very aesthetically pleasing. It was didn't have very many photographs, and it was all stock photography. It was not dynamic in any way, shape, or form. And we're a growing, dynamic organization, and I mean, we've gone from probably 8,000 employees to over 15,000 employees in the last 5 years. Tremendous growth, and our website certainly didn't speak to that.
So, and how long ago did you make that change in the career site and the social accounts?
I think it was a little over a year ago, maybe a year and a half. We started that, and we did that in just under 45 days to phase one, which was, let's just get it mobile, you know, so that people can, you know, my audience is oftentimes working, and they're scrolling on their mobile device while they're on their lunch break for 30 minutes. They're not sitting at a computer in an office somewhere. They're, you know, they're in operating rooms and in patient rooms. So I have to catch them, you know, when they're on a lunch break or you know, driving, you know, when they get home from work or something. So we had to make it mobile. We had to make it easy. And we had to start telling our story on there.
So we have a question coming in. A question coming in from Jason. It sounds like these efforts have been successful at the professional level, such as nurses. Are you seeing the marketing efforts working as well at support and clerical levels?
For sure. Yeah. I mean, those are a lot of the comments we get in our social media come from the support and the clerical type positions. I mean, I think different channels speak to different populations. Definitely LinkedIn tends to be our more professional side of the house. You know, our accounting professionals, our leadership perhaps, and nursing is moving, you know, the population's increasing there. But then if you get onto Facebook and some of those other channels, that's where we see more of our EVS or our food service. And those folks, you know, our retention is actually getting pretty darn good. And our environmental services won an award this year, like a national award. They're definitely paying attention to culture. And we're also working on internal propositions for that segment as well. Career pathing for not just our nursing staff, but for our support staff.
So what I'm hearing from you, Kelly, is it sounds, and correct me if I'm wrong on this, that the candidates, according to whatever level, are generally behaving in the same way. But it's different channels and different methods of attraction rather than different behaviours, as in spending a bit more time looking at culture and people and so on.
Yes, correct.
Excellent.
I believe that is the case.
Excellent. So, what metrics are you actually?
You know, I think no matter what level you are, you want to feel that connection to to where you go every day. I mean, it becomes more than just a job in a place where you enjoy coming every day.
Excellent. So the big question, I know everyone's always interested in metrics and some real stuff. What metrics do you use to measure effectiveness?
Well, we're always looking at, of course, our cost per hire and our cost per application and our conversions and where our hires are actually coming from. I mean, we're actually, you know, we didn't have good tracking data until maybe a year ago, a little less than a year ago, actually. And so we're just now starting to really kind of, I think in August, we'll be able to see like year over year. And so I'm very excited to start looking at that. But the metrics have been extremely interesting, and I didn't used to consider myself a numbers person, but they certainly do. The proof is in the numbers, and it's been fun to watch those come in.
And I think definitely that tells a story. Marlon, as someone who lives in the analytics and lives in the numbers, what do you think people should be looking at, and how do you actually track that effectively?
So with the metrics, given that Northside is not only, again, running media, but they're utilizing several channels, including social, the metrics, we look at them holistically. Again, as Kelly mentioned, cost per application, completed submitted applications, cost per hires. We're also looking at, you know, traction on social media. So the types of content that people engage with the most. We can even look at with the content, how many people are actually applying and converting hires from social. We'll be looking at, you know, in the future, state talent communities and things as such, and how people are converting. So we're looking at everything in order to continue to define and build the Northside strategy going forward, to make sure that we are addressing not only the Northside message, but we are addressing what people are engaging with and what they are really interested in. So it's pretty much holistic.
Excellent. And so, Kelly, we've got some real examples of some of your content there. One of the fascinating stories I think I picked up from the conversations that we've had and the information we've shared is the types of content that performs in different channels. Without looking at the specific numbers, what type of content do you think works in what channel?
You know, and I even kind of see some different populations we have, like from our women's labor and delivery, mother, baby, they tend to engage a lot with Facebook. You can kind of see different populations engaging with different channels, but I mean, from Facebook, to me, it's mostly featured pieces that come directly from our units. These are employees doing things out of the hospital. It's just, I mean, they're just the real stories coming out of the hospital. They're, you know, a nurse that retired after 38 years, a nurse that saved a man on her off day. You know, I mean, there's just things like that. The one up there is welcome to our crib. We moved to a new facility, and we had shirts. The unit had shirts made, and it was welcome to your new crib. And so it's just, these are real photographs. The majority of them taken by either one of my teammates or somebody out in the unit that just is snapping these photographs, and then they submit them to us, and we kind of, you know, package them and put them out on our social media. But they're real stories.
Yeah, I think that's really fascinating. One of the things that came out in the numbers was video performing as the top performer for engagement on Facebook. What sort of things do you video?
Do we video?
Yeah.
We do employee stories. Lately, we've been working on some, you know, just getting out there little short videos from hiring managers, like what they're looking for in a new team member, resume tips from our recruiters, and these are just honestly, one of the supervisors on my team, she'll just say, "Hey, can I video you real quick?" And it's on her phone. I mean, they're done pretty organically, and they go up and they post. I mean, they just perform tremendously.
And these are iPhone videos. It's not bringing the camera crew.
Correct. Yes.
Low budget.
Yeah.
Now something
I mean, we've definitely done the, bringing in the video crews, but there again, I mean, they're just employees. I reach out to the area managers. Hey, who are some employees you'd like to highlight? They give me a list of employees. We set it up, and so the employees that they're not picked by me. They're picked as from their leadership on their units as to employees that they want to highlight. So even when we do the professional type videos, it's still our real staff just talking about what they do every day.
And some of the other data that came back was photos of employees that perform best on LinkedIn.
Yes, they perform extremely well. I think people like to see their name in lights, and they share, and we try to photograph the things we're already doing out there, and then of course the new facilities and the growth always excites people because it's it's exciting in the community to watch. It's good things happening, and oftentimes, it's out there on TV or on social media. It's not the good things, and so we're posting the good things. Here, we're growing again. We're building a new facility. We're expanding on this service. Talking about the feel good stories. Here, these babies were delivered, or twins, one at midnight and the end of December, one in January. We're telling those awesome stories that happen. And what we're hearing is, I want to work in a place like that.
Yeah, and these are what I thought was really interesting for LinkedIn is that it was photos that was top performing in engagement as opposed to content, as opposed to kind of written word.
Yes, right. It's quick photos, and it's real people doing real life, and I think that's what's missing sometimes in marketing these days. It's not the real story.
But in terms of Twitter, if we switch channels when we're looking at what works where, it was employee appreciation that performed the best for you. What sort of thing is that, and how do you actually capture that?
I've got it's like I think probably 2 years ago in recruitment, I noticed that we're doing all the right things, and so I needed somebody to help with retention efforts, and so we created this position that focuses on retention. And so those folks on my team are going out into the units and spending time on those units, just getting to know the nurses and figuring out the pros and the cons of those units. And so a part of what they do are employee engagement and just employee activities. And so they do a lot around either Wonder Woman, the movie release of Wonder Woman, or Cupcake Day, or Chocolate Chip Cookie Day, I think is going to go out soon. Or, nurses are working hard, and they don't always have time to feed themselves. So our motto here is, you take care of our patients, we'll take care of you. And so they're throwing these parties for them, often days, nights, weekends, holidays. So all I ask is when they're over there, I'm like, snap a few photos of it, and we put it up there. So these are things that are happening in our units. We snap some of the pictures and put it up, and people just love it.
And by contrast from Twitter, it was on Glassdoor, it was the new facility content that got the most engagement and traction. Yeah,
I think that's, I think by the time they get to Glassdoor, I think the evolution comes from they're seeing us on social media, they're seeing our employees do fun things, then they're seeing in some of our channels more of our community activism, what we're doing out in the community, volunteer work, and then they're coming to Glassdoor to kind of check us out before they land in our application, because Glassdoor is one of our largest drivers of application. I think when they get there, what they're seeing or what's engaging or exciting them is the growth of the organization, where we're going, our stability, how we're building for the future. So I think that's why they're it's like different stages of the courting process, if you will. And by the time they get to the Glassdoor, they want to know, okay, great, your people look awesome, you're doing community work, your employees are work hard, play hard, but are you going to be able to sustain that? And so the Glassdoor focuses a little bit more on, or I think that's what they're looking for there, is the sustainability or the growth of our organization.
Marlon, if I have a question for you, I hadn't asked about this data before, so you may or may not have the answer to hand. But are you finding people come uniquely from a channel to the career site? So it might be just Facebook to career site, or is there a crossbreed of those people who are Facebook, Twitter, Glassdoor, and following in all the channels?
There's a variety. If we look at kind of trends on where people start their journey and how they end up to convert and apply, there's hundreds of different trends for a user. But I will say one thing, Kelly is absolutely correct. Once a person has gotten to Glassdoor, they've seen all you've had to say, and they are taking that last step to see if what you're saying is for real, right? You have employee reviews, and are you really answering those questions that come up and the issues that come up on Glassdoor, or what are your, positive ratings and what type of things are being said by real people and not you as the brand. And what we see is kind of out of all of social media, Glassdoor by far has the highest apply conversion rate because it's just what Kelly said. Once they've gotten there, regardless of how many steps they've taken in the past and what combinations of sources they've looked at, that's really the biggest kind of conversion point if we're looking at social media. But answering your question in another way, it's also going to depend on the user, right? It depends on where the user is and where that candidate is in their job journey. Are they really an active seeker in need of a job, or are they just kind of fishing around because they're not happy, or, it depends.
Okay, and we kind of, when we were speaking yesterday, I know we identified a typical journey being going to a social page, then to a career site, then to a job, then to Glassdoor, and then to apply. Is that the normal kind of journey that you're seeing, where Glassdoor is kind of that check, almost that the same as I'd go to TripAdvisor if I found a hotel on Booking.com? The same behaviour is happening with Glassdoor.
Yes.
Any other thoughts on that as to why that might be, or?
Again, I think it's what we've talked about before, right? That it has to do with, if you look at the other social media sites, when people are on Facebook, typically it's just that they're engaging with their friends, with their family to see what's going on. They're also looking at companies and looking at the reality kind of what it's like from a cultural perspective to work in a certain company, but that's not necessarily their conversion point, right? That's a part of the process. When you're looking at LinkedIn, that's more of your professionals. That's a trigger, but again, it's a more limited audience. It's more corporate, higher end professionals. When you're looking at Glassdoor, it broaches across all audiences. And like we said before, it's not just the nurses or the professionals who are looking into jobs. It's everybody from allied to their environmental services. Everybody really wants to hear from your actual employees what's happening there, which is why I think Glassdoor has that higher conversion rate and is more holistic, if you will.
Yeah, in that's the last destination people are going before they go back and hit that apply button, just to get that reassurance. I think it's one of the things I've always been interested in around Glassdoor, is whether it's a shopping channel, people comparing brands, or whether it's a safety check, and that's definitely something I'm interested in, that I thought was fantastic. So, do we have any questions at the moment, Sheridan?
We do, Bill. We have two coming in. One, how was the leadership buy-in with the new changes, Kelly? So this was speaking to slides a couple back, but I didn't want to interrupt the flow here. So could you speak to a little bit about kind of your experience working with leadership as you started to formulate kind of the revamp of the brand?
I had to make the story to them, and it was, they're brilliant people, obviously. They've done an unbelievable job with this hospital, but they're very conservative, and they are not on social channels. My direct leadership and her leadership are not out there. None of them knew what Glassdoor even was. So I had to really sort of find examples of things and just really kind of sell to them. What I was showing them was, you know, I had a 23 employee gap in one of our units, and I said, you know, I have the best recruiter that I believe I can find in this industry. We're doing all of the right things according to the standard recruiting, if you will. We're not closing that gap. The difference is I've got to get people to see that it's a great place to work. And that it sort of kind of opened their eyes. I'm like, you can give me another FTE, but that, I'm telling you, that will not fill, that's not going to close the gap there. You know, we've got to change the way we're approaching this. And, you know, they took a chance, and I definitely pushed the envelope. I mean, I joked for a long time that when my name was gone off the door that it was going to be, I said the wrong thing to the wrong person, but I definitely pushed the envelope, and the market's changed, the world's changed, our target audience has changed. You can't do things the way you used to.
So has this been, Kelly, a step change? As in, did you get a little bit and then you got a little bit more and a little bit more?
Yes, yes. I finally started, yeah, it just started slowly. I mean, it started with, yes, they said we could do Facebook, and then they, you know, they were very controlled with the stories. Now they're getting more and more, and it's funny to watch them now get really excited about, you know, we recently got to a 4 rating on Glassdoor, and they're super excited about it, and it's been fun to watch, but they definitely buy into it. But it was definitely in baby steps. What my boss said to me was, we'll get to where you want to go. Maybe not as fast as you would like to get there, but eventually we'll get there. And it, you know, it just took baby steps. And along the way, I'm always asking Marlon, I'm like, okay, help me prove this point. This is what we want to do. So help me, you know, help me prove this point. So we're always looking, and of course my leadership, and oftentimes senior leaders are, you know, they want the numbers. They have to have the math. And so the numbers are able to show that this stuff is working. The leaders in the units are talking about, they love it too. They love to see the culture out there and to share, and it's working. So each success gets a little easier.
So what was your story? Was it career site first and then Facebook and then the next piece, or?
I think we did. We started with Facebook, and then we got the career site up and going, and then we moved. Then we launched. We had done LinkedIn, but it was very conservative, and we had not done Glassdoor. Of course, a profile was up there because that's what they do. So we really started focusing in on those channels and developing a real solid social strategy. And then now we're refining the website. We're on to phase 3, I think, of our career site.
Okay, so my other question, I think, which sits behind this one, is you mentioned early on, you generate a lot of your content organically, but it's submitted to you rather than posted on the channel, and then it goes to the channels. How does that work, and why is that important? And I guess that also gives the senior management the feeling of security in terms of what.
Yes, I think they needed to feel that security, that they would have some sort of control around what was published. And I do think in healthcare and in a lot of industries, I'm sure there's a lot of HIPAA compliance, and we are vulnerable in certain segments. So we do have to protect, and I completely understand and respect that. But at the same time, I mean, you know, I think people are wise enough these days on social media to understand that if somebody comments an inappropriate comment on there, that's not the view or the opinions of Northside Hospital. So the employees, the leaders, the staff, whomever, will submit content, and that is all kind of compiled, and then we go through and we post these things. You know, you can't post all of one thing or all of another thing. You have to kind of strategically plan out when you're going to post. There is definitely a science behind social media.
Yeah. So do you have a portal where employees submit to, or is it sent to a person? How does it actually work?
It's usually just sent to me. We do. I mean, Marlon and her team helped me. They created a kind of a form for them to, for all my leadership has, but the majority of them at this point, they've just been submitting it to me. Now, there is a way you can do that through the Q Social, which we use through Marla and her team, but that's not something we've done yet. The organization still sort of likes that control that it comes in, or, you know, my folks are photographing it, or it comes in and then it's sort of controlled and it's looked at by a few folks before it's posted. There's definitely method behind the madness.
So have you found the evolution has been, and this is what I've seen with other people, that in the beginning there's a lot of checking, there's a lot of control, and after a time it becomes, okay, we can see this is all compliant.
Yes, yes. In the beginning, it was. I mean, there were multiple channel and multiple checks, kind of at different levels, and marketing would look at it, and my leadership would look at it. I mean, now I still send it to those folks for review, but most of the time it comes back now with very or little changes, and rarely do they ask us to not post something or to exclude something.
And
as a matter of fact, we're engaging a lot more with our corporate channels, and they're very excited to partner with us.
So how do you manage to run those controls, those checks and balances, the control aspect, and work at the pace of social, which is pretty instant?
Yeah, I mean, I had to get their engagement. I mean, I had to get their buy-in and let them know, look, I'm happy to have whomever you want to approve it, but, you know, we got to go. We have to, you know, keep running with this. And so they've been pretty good about that. I mean, they committed that they would review it, and if I got it to them in a timely fashion, and they have. They've been pretty good. It's been very rare that we've run into issues with that.
So what advice would you give to the person asking the question, who might be in the same position that anyone else is looking in thinking, yeah, I want to get there. How do I set up? I work in a corporate environment. There's lots of fear from marketing and lots of other people. What advice would you give people to actually get to?
I think you got to find the pain point, like I did. I found that pain point of those open positions that we couldn't seem to get filled by all the traditional methods, and so I was able to kind of create a story around where you know, I was able to show them that let me try something new, because we've tried all these traditional methods. They're not working. Nothing's changing. The needle's not moving in our recruitment, and you know, I think if you find a pain point and you're able to, you know, show them, we've tried all these traditional methods, they're not working. Here's what I'm doing research. I mean, I'd looked at other healthcare facilities that I loved their campaigns and said, look, you know, I stopped and looked at this campaign and this is why. You know, if you can find some of that and show them, you know, and start small.
And just get that right. So how do you actually represent, the next question for us, I'm conscious of time, how do you represent the emotional side of the brand?
I think in healthcare, it's maybe a little easier than some others to show the emotional side. I mean, most of our stories come from our staff and their patients, and most people go into healthcare for, you know, they want that, they're nurturing individuals, want to care for someone. So I think I've got a little easier there than some industries to show the emotional side, but we definitely, we talk about what our staff is doing every day and how they're caring for their patients, and we're really showing that emotional side.
You gave me a very real story yesterday of someone you hired recently.
Yeah,
Emotions came into it in a big way.
Yes, yeah, we are. Healthcare is extremely competitive. I mean, extremely, and we sit in an area what they call Pill Hill in Atlanta, and it's very, very, very competitive. So, you know, all we can rely on right now, I think, is our people and our culture. And so, our CNO from one of our other hospitals, called me a couple months ago, and she said they had been working on recruiting this physician, and he was. It was a very difficult recruit, very passive, you know, and they're trying to get him to relocate to this market. It's a very competitive service line, and they were working really hard trying to get this physician to sign on at Northside. And he made the comment to her in one of their meetings. He said, you know, I've been looking around, and I noticed some things on your social media, and I saw a story, and I thought, you know, that's amazing, and that's the kind of place I want to work. So, you know, I'm ready to look at contracts. and he's, you know, that position is coming on board, and that happened to be a story that he was referencing, which was some of our ICU nurses here at our Atlanta campus on their own organically. They had done this for years, but they told me about it, and so I said, did you take any pictures? Well, of course they did. These are nurses socializing with each other after work, and they actually go over and volunteer at Children's Hospital across the street. So that physician was just impressed that we have the kind of culture that our nurses from a unit are bonding and getting along and go out after work, and they're actually volunteering at another organization. That was impressive to him, and was enough to win him over. And that, to me, that CNO was like, wow, this is really powerful and it's working. So when they start hearing those kind of comments, they get really excited.
Excellent, excellent. So Marlon, just a quick question for you. How do you, social media, these kind of stories are floating around the internet. We know people are looking at them. They're not necessarily applying for jobs from there. They're ultimately going to career sites and applying. How do you actually measure the effectiveness of these stories to be able to say what's performing well and what maybe needs changing?
So we measure the actual down to the content level of the post, and we start seeing trends in terms of what content gets the most comment, shares, interactions, or even down to the apply and hire level. And we see certain trends start to emerge. Again, we like to keep the social media strategy holistic, where we're not just focusing on certain areas, but it needs to be refined consistently. And then we look at, you know, what the trends are and what happens with people that are coming in from social media to a career site. How do they interact differently, or do they interact differently from people coming in from other sources? And we tend to see that people coming from social media, again, because of some of the things that we've discussed during the call, they're looking at a lot more content on the site as well. And they're engaging with more pages of information on the site also. So we're looking at kind of everything down to ROI, right? What's the hire, but we're also making sure that the strategy is always fresh, and we're really looking at what we're putting out there. And thankfully, Northside has been a partner who has been great about, you know, getting the stories and everything we've been discussing and sending that over. So that definitely helps.
Excellent. So Kelly, one for you. What changes did you change your branding, your marketing, the way in which you're going out to the market, your storytelling, your being social and engaging? What changes do you actually need to make to your recruiting progress, your recruiting process, sorry, to reflect that?
Well, we did things like we shortened our application process. The application was very long and lengthy, and we've gotten that down. I think the last I checked, you could apply in under 3 minutes, and we're continuing. I mean, that's a work in progress. We're continuing to refine that. We stopped holding your traditional job fairs, and we started holding more of what we call meet and greets. So we had them at restaurants or at you know, areas that people would like to go, and we bring leaders from the units and staff from the units, and we have them engage. It's more just come and talk, come and meet our employees, meet the folks you'll be working with, and it's not because that's the conversion rate there is unbelievable. I mean, some of those events, I mean, we get 4 and 5 hires from some of these events, and these are very hard to fill critical roles that, you know, you can't get. We weren't getting 4 hires from these type of events, and I think, you know, we've just changed the way we look at the recruiting process.
I think that's exactly right. I think that's one of the things that I see, that social and a social approach to recruiting is much more than posting some stories on Twitter or doing some stuff on Facebook. It is becoming social, conversational, and interactive in your whole process.
Correct.
Yeah. Which I think is absolutely key. So how do you continue engagement? Last question, how do you continue engagement with people who are interested but haven't actually hit that apply button?
Well, I know we're doing a lot of retargeting, and we're definitely trying to stay present in front of those people. Right now, we are working on phase 3 of our kind of our plan, and that is we're developing a CRM that will work in conjunction. We do have a talent network, but it's not very robust, and it hasn't been a tool that we've used very often, and so we're refining that. So we're in the process right now. By October, we should have a fairly robust CRM, and we'll be able to really continue to date these or potentials, if you will. That's
so
to come.
And I know we talked about what's next, and everything that seems to be coming back is what's next is figuring out the personalized, your next phase. You talked about this being phase 1. Your phase 2 is really about personalizing that experience person by person rather than group by group.
Correct. Yeah. Well, and we're trying to make our jobs way more interactive. So if you're a nurse and you're searching for a nursing position, when you come to our career site, you will see nursing content. If you're a professional, maybe accounting or allied health, you'll come to our website, and we would like you to see relevant photographs, pictures, videos that will resonate with you. So pictures of our pharmacy or our rehab facilities, or and if you're accounting or business office, we'd like you to see more of that side of our business, so that it's not just one size fits all. So that's kind of the phase we're working on right now. We're gathering assets of videos and photographs and language to talk about the culture in these different segments of our business.
Got it. Which I think is exactly right, and ideal is actually saying, I look on it as one of the key tenets of social recruiting and branding, and it should all be looked at as one thing, with different branches of it, not separated. Is that we're really reaching out to an audience of one rather than reaching out to an audience of many. We're just doing it lots of times.
Yeah, I tend to be I'm a people person. I don't have a marketing background like you said, and so my brain kind of works in I look at issues. So we hired a recruiter maybe a year or two ago, and he's outstanding, and he's just doing phenomenal. And I said to him, your wife is a nurse, your mother, your grandmother, you've all this time, why did you not think about coming to work in healthcare? And he's like, you think about it, I go to your career site, whatever, and it's all nurses. Like, I just think that's for nurses. And there's so much more. Yes, we have a lot of nurses, and our facility won't run without them, but it also won't run without the recruiters and without our business professionals. So, that's when it gets my brain thinking, like, how do I attract the recruiter that's awesome out there? If he's coming to my website and everything's about nurses, it doesn't resonate with him that, hey, they also have the business side of the house. And so it's those kind of conversations that I jot down those notes, and then I'm like, okay, how am I going to attract the non-nurse to Northside?
Perfect. Okay, so I think we're coming up for time, but Sharon, do we have any questions or any pressing points if people want to bear with us?
We do have a couple of questions. One from a little while back. One of our participants asked, I am helping a client to revise their recruitment, marketing, and job description strategy. My challenge is the industry itself, third-party collections. How would you present the upside about a strong culture of a great company despite the negativity associated with the third-party collections industry? It's not easy, and this company has faced a great deal of turnover, but they're very progressive and very positive, and they have a great team culture. So how would you suggest we face this challenge?
That's difficult, because I know that industry is definitely has the reputation, but I think what I would do is find a way to tell that story, and find a way to either video your employees talking about it. I would make sure you have like a glass door, and have those employees talking about what it's like to work there, and do your best to show your staff and show the culture.
And
Marlon,
I
you might.
think on that, I've been involved in some of that type of work. It's looking at, okay, people who stayed there, because there are people who thrive in those environments and people who don't. So how do you reach other people who survive on that, and what do they come for? And very often, you know, if you're in a tough industry like collections or an industry that can be quite difficult, I've done some work with. We think about people like inland revenue and all the rest of it. In industries that can be quite tough or quite negative, is why do people go there every day? And it's usually for the people that they work with, which is the point I pick up from what Kelly's saying. So it's actually showcase, and I've seen companies who've been almost under siege from publicity externally about what's going on in the company, and they've actually, some people have thrived in that siege mentality. You know, it's almost like we stick together and we thrive and enjoy that team mentality. So it's actually going out there and finding those stories and showing them and saying that there's a very balanced side of it. And the whole social approach to branding, I think, has gone from everything from, you know, I've spoken with companies who are accountancy practices that are really wanting to say, we need to show everyone we don't just turn up for work in grey suits and be quite and have a boring environment. We need to show that there's life in it. We do a serious job, but there's people here and we enjoy working together. And it's showing those stories without trying to dress it up too much and saying, oh no, it's great, don't worry about the difficulty in this job, that attracts people and brings them in.
And I think you have to not assume. Sometimes I think we make the mistake that we assume what brought the employee here, or we assume what keeps them here. You know, in my mind, okay, I'm like, oh, is it our pension? It's our, you know, is it this? And so I think if you go out and you talk to some of those tenured employees that are sticking it out, your success stories, and ask them, you know, what brought you here? Why do you stay? And what would make it better? And you start to see a theme, and that's what you focus on.
Exactly. Other questions we've got there, Sharon?
I think we're a little bit after the hour here. I'm just letting a couple of folks know that we'll follow up with them offline. I want to be respectful of everybody's time. So that covers the question part of the presentation, Bill.
Excellent. So Marlon, anything you want to add to what we've discussed?
Yeah, I would just add specifically to the last question that we were talking about. With the finance, especially a collection industry, you're looking at the consumer driving the message most of the time. When you do a Google search, and that message is not necessarily going to be the message you want to engage with or necessarily feel good about going to work with the company. So I think you really have to focus on driving your message as an employer, and really making that separation between what the consumer is seeing you as and the feedback they're sharing, and what people may interact with organically, and what you really are about. And all of the kind of points or different strategies we've discussed, specifically with social media, are really good ways of you showcasing this is who we are as an employer, and it's not necessarily the same message you're receiving from our interaction, or potentially not great interaction with consumers. So I think that's really important to point out who's actually driving the message and how do you drive that message.
That's fantastic. And Kelly, anything you want to add top of the show?
No, but I'm sure that I think my contact information is on here, and you know, I'm happy to help in any way I can.
So if anyone wants to reach out to Kelly, where can they find you?
It's kelly.piccininni@northside.com.
And you'll find Kelly, the spelling of Kelly's name on the webinar registration.
Yes, I have to sing it myself.
Yeah, I won't say how many N's. I'll leave that one. Go and check it. Connecting with Kelly, connecting with me, with Marlon, and with Symphony Talent. But I've found this one of the most enjoyable conversations I've had, and educational. I've learned a lot from you, Kelly, and Marlon. So thanks for joining me on this. I look forward to the next Be Your Brand. Sheridan, anything you want to say to close us out?
Nope. Thanks to everybody for joining us. We apologize for the audio troubles at the beginning, but we seem to work through them. So thank you to all of our participants. You'll be getting a link to the recording. So definitely check that out, as well as a recap blog in the next couple of days, and an invite to our next Be Your Brand webinar, which will take place on September 12th with Florida Hospital.
And those questions we haven't answered, we'll put in a blog post for you so you can all see them and share them. So thanks everyone for listening.
Thank you.
Thanks. Bye.